All right, calling to order the City of West Sacramento regular meeting of the West Sacramento City Council, the West Sacramento Redevelopment Successor Agency, and the West Sacramento Financing Authority, August 20th, 2014. Council did meet in closed session on a discussion of public employee performance evaluation. Was it? Oh. And no action was taken. All right, we'll start the meeting with a pledge of allegiance. John Freeman, please lead it.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the first item on the agenda is presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of the council. So at this point, we've got one speaker. And again, this is an area where folks can speak, but council is prohibited by law from engaging on or taking any action on any items discussed. So the speaker is Bill Lowell.
Testing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. William Lowell of West Sacramento for the record. And I'm just a little disturbed about the recent action taken by our YOLO bus board and the people providing insurance. They've been discussing this since last December, but only at the last meeting did they acknowledge the situation, but they've been making these adjustments for last month or two. They've been flipping the front flip seats. They've been securing them in an upright position where you can't fold them down and use them. So for people with special needs, like with a walker or shopping cart, whatever, why there's that much less space for us to use, and sometimes we're not allowed, there's not space for us to get on the bus anymore. And so during all those months they've been discussing that, I think they should have, as an alternative, they should have removed like the front-facing seats behind those wheelchair flip seats and then reversed the direction and the sides of those wheelchair front seats and created seats in there like what's on the older light rail cars, where half the seats are forward facing and half of them are rear facing, and that creates a lot of extra space there for people with shopping carts, walkers, and all that. So with more people living longer, but more with special needs, I think we should take steps in that direction rather than waiting for the buses to be replaced, or at least inject that as one of the alternatives to take care of the situation like this. Otherwise, we're sending a message out there that the cities of Woodland and West Sacramento especially, we're saying to potential shoppers, we don't want you shopping in our cities unless you have your own car or your own form of transportation. And I don't think that's what you had intended. Another alternative would be to take the front seats on one side of the bus and change them to side-facing seats, probably flip seats, and that could make for more flexibility in the seating. So I'll let it go at that, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. All right, the next item on the agenda is council communications. Do any council members have any communications to report? Ms. Endy.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Johannesson. I attended the Yolo County Transportation District just mentioned on August 11th, and I was there as an alternate for Mr. Ledesma. At that meeting, he was selected as chair of the Yolo County Transportation District for fiscal year 14-15, and Harold Anderson of Winters was elected as vice chair. I also was elected as an alternate for the Capital Corridor JPA board, and Rob Davis of Davis was appointed as the primary member. In addition, we took action on procurement of some paratransit vehicles, and also provided additional transit-related background planning assistance, for capital projects affecting the city of Woodland. And there was a report on the flip seats mentioned by Mr. Lowell, and I believe his input was taken by the executive director. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ledesma.
Thank you. This past Monday, we had a meeting of the Yellow Natural Habitat Program, the NCCP, HCP program, and as I'm trying to get back to the agenda, there it is. We met on Monday in Woodland, and we had a few things on the agenda, and it's worth kind of bringing back up to this board of this project, which has been going on, as you all know, for some time, trying to get this plan and the permits in for our conservation plan. And we had a couple of really important milestones at this meeting. First of all, we had representatives from both the state and the federal agencies, wildlife agencies, who came to continue to provide their support and engagement into this process. It may not seem like a lot, but the current pace of our project, we're putting together we're about to draw upon our second administrative draft. It's projected to be done by the March of 2015. But the issues that go within it, how we frame how we put together our conservation planning, the costs that are embedded in and the assumptions that go into the costs that are embedded in that. The state and the federal government have both committed a large amount of their resources, people, to be in all-day meetings for the past 9 months on this issue, so we can resolve these, so that our cities can get the most bang for our buck from a project management perspective. And they have done a terrific job. We discussed a couple of things. One is we approved, or at least we gave staff the direction to move forward on a framework to resolve major issues, including how we continue to bring in, enroll existing lands that have easements on them for some sort of conservation. Yellow County is rich in, as you all know, rich in agricultural land and rich in open space that already have some level of easements on them for conservation. The question is to what level and what standard would the state and federal government be accepting of those as sort of towards our permanent, or at least our 50-year term? How would they go about that? And so they've been very, very flexible with us. We feel confident in that. We also talked about the 50-year term, which they've asked us to study a 40 to 50-year term. And we're going to endeavor that. That was a big item for us, whether the plan goes out 40 years or 50 years. 50 years, to use my background, I think of it as a 50-year amortization versus a 40-year. Could we pay for it all and get it all done in a 50-year period versus a 40-year? But both agencies, particularly in this one, the federal government, has been very, very open and flexible with us. They want to plan a good conservation plan, and they said, well, if we could study it and it shows that the science and the finances show that it would support over 50 years, they would be accepting of that. They would be open to it. So again, these are really critical issues. And as I brought to the rest of the board, 2 years ago, we didn't even know what the issues were, and we're resolving these very critical issues at a breakneck pace. So we made a tremendous amount of progress. We will be making presentations on a complete update. The executive director and others will be coming around during the fall to give a complete update on these issues, because they are important for cities to start to understand. As this little agency now goes from a project plan and getting the permits in place to a small permanent agency to implement it, and that's an important concept that we're going to have to face. It's a huge milestone. So anyway, a large part of our meeting was spent discussing that, and again, it was just it was a good opportunity for us to kind of check in on where we've been since where we were 2-3 years ago when things weren't so good at this agency, as Mr. Kristoff knows. So anyway, so that was it. We also, again, we received our monthly financial statement. The JPA is doing extremely well right now. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Mr. Kristoff?
Yes, on August 14th, Westside SAFCA met, and we had a pretty interesting meeting. We certified the environmental impact report for our flood program, and that now opens things up so that we can negotiate with property owners. We can do a number of things now, and it's a very, very large step for our Westside SAFCA. One of the issues that we also resolved was, as I had indicated earlier to the council, there was a mistake made a few years ago, and some people were not charged the proper amount for the assessment that went on our tax rolls. And Westside SAFCA thought that it was our mistake. We made the error. And so from now moving forward, we will be charging the correct and proper amount. So we're going to lose a little bit of money. In the scheme of things, this is a $400 million project. And in the scheme of things, this $79,000 is really sort of small potatoes. It's nothing that any of us like, but at the same time, it was our mistake, and the Westside SAFCA board said, we'll loan up to it and start charging the people the correct amount. And we also had Ken Rusich retired. And he was the director of the flood district for a number of years. I think he had 40 years working with RD 900. And he retired, and we have replaced him with Kendrick Samsol. So looking forward to continued movement on all of the different flood issues that Westside SAFCA has been dealing with, and I don't think we're really going to miss a step. We will certainly miss Ken, and I would like to see if staff could put together a proclamation or something for all of the work and things that he has done. I offered not to take his retirement, but I think he's in Bali or something. He took off. Didn't have much choice, so he's on vacation now, and I'm sure he and his family are enjoying themselves very much. And so he'll be missed, but he was a heck of a director. I mean, West Sacramento is surrounded by water, as everybody knows, and we've come close a number of times, but he and his crew have really kept this community dry and safe, and that's very, very appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kristoff. All right, council appointments, reappointments, removes from city or non-city boards and commissions. We have none for tonight. And moving on to agenda item 2 was a presentation of a proclamation supporting permanent protection of the Berryessa Snow Mountain region as a national conservation area or a national monument. Ms. Richardson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I believe we have Ms. Sarah Husby here from the Berryessa Stone Mountain Group to accept the proclamation.
All All right, so we have a proclamation of the West Sacramento City Council, and this supports the protection of the Berryessa Snow Mountain region. And in the past, this council has supported the movement toward preserving this area. And this particular proclamation, whereas Tulalami and supportive business owners, anglers, and elected officials, private landowners, and other community members seek to permanently protect the Berryessa Snow Mountain federal public lands as a national conservation area or a national monument. And Representatives Mike Thompson, John Garameni, and Jared Huppen have introduced the Berryessa Snow Mountain National Conservation Area Act, which is H.R. 1025, that is also co-sponsored by Congresswoman Doris Matsuiti to permanently protect those federal public lands. And whereas Congress has acted and has not acted, and a presidential declaration for a Berryessa Snow Mountain National Monument under the Antiquities Act of 1906 can accomplish the goals that the supporters of the Berryessa Snow Mountain region seek to achieve. And whereas it is in the interest of the citizens of the region to permanently preserve these nearby lands, which are used by many as a place to visit and enjoy the region's vast recreational activities, including hiking, swimming, hunting, fishing, horseback riding, photography, motorboating, camping, orienteering, wildlife viewing, scientific research, mountain bicycling, motorized recreation on authorized routes, and nature study. And whereas the National Conservation Area and the National Monument designations have been shown to help local communities diversify their economies and increase tourism, as well as help attract businesses, thereby generating economic benefit for the nearby communities through local employment and tax revenues. And whereas the National Conservation Act or National Monument designation would permanently protect some of the most biologically diverse public land in the nation, from the oak woodlands around Lake Berryessa in the south, stretching 100 miles north to the 7,000-foot peak of the Snow Mountain Wilderness in the Mendocino National Forest, with Shasta red fir forest. Now, therefore, be resolved that the City Council of West Sacramento hereby support the permanent protection of the Berryessa Snow Mountain region as a National Conservation Area Act or national monument, and authorizes the use of this proclamation as support for the furtherance of this goal for this good cause, either through congressional act or by presidential declaration. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much.
Would you like to say a few words?
Sure. I would like to thank the City of West Sacramento for their longtime support on the permanent protection of the Berryessa Snow Mountain region. The Berryessa Snow Mountain region is close to 9.8 million people. It's about an hour-and-a-half drive from Sacramento and the San Francisco area. It's rich in biodiversity. There's many recreational opportunities. And as mentioned, permanent protection would be good for economic development for local gateway communities. Everything was pretty much said in that proclamation. You guys took away my 3-minute elevator speech. So I just want to say thank you again for your support.
Thank you very much. All right, we need to actually vote on that proclamation. So is there a motion?
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you all. All right, now we're down to the consent agenda. Items 3 through 8. Are there any items that any council member would like to pull for separate discussion or a motion?
I'll move consent.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion passes. We are down to number 9, consideration of the Washington District Sustainable Community Strategy for Parks and Open Space. Ms. Hamilton.
Katie.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. Staff tonight is recommending council conceptually approve the Washington Parks Master Plan for distributed parks and public open spaces and that council directs staff to incorporate the plan into the final HUD Complete Community Strategy document and return for final council approval in December. Additionally, it is recommended that council direct staff to prepare updates and amendments to the 2003 City Parks Master Plan and the Washington Specific Plan to reflect the policies and regulatory framework identified in the Washington Parks Master Plan. In 2011, the city was awarded a $400,000 federal Community Challenge Planning Grant for sustainable community development. This was matched by a $350,000 local match and CDBG match. This Parks and Open Space Plan is ultimately a component of the Complete Community Strategy element of the grant requirements. As you are aware, the Washington Specific Plan and the City Parks Master Plan calls for a large 4-acre central park in the Washington district of the city to serve as the neighborhood park amenity. This plan ultimately, however, was not implemented after the 1996 adoption of the specific plan, and since that time, the identified parcel has development covering approximately half the parcel. So the project team first did an early assessment and analysis of the feasibility of the Central Park concept, given the need to protect the potential of large parcels in the Washington district to develop at the densities needed for streetcar ridership and viability, and the need to protect the character of the historic district. The team concluded that an urban strategy for delivering distributed parks amenities would best meet all of the transit served and other development planning objectives for the district. The grant provided for an extensive public outreach process, and during the initial grant public kickoff meetings, the majority of comments received from the public were focused on the desire for additional park amenities. On May 19th and July 7th, specific focus meetings were held with the residents on parks and recreation amenities. Notices were sent to all of the property owners in the district from the tax assessor roles. And this slide represents the results of the district visioning process and exercise. As you can see, there were 3 major themes: to really address the social conditions and other challenges in the neighborhood, to realize the district's full potential, and to also realize the strength of the diversity of architectural styles that could be developed in the district, and to mix both the modern and historic. This was the vision statement that was crafted and supported by all the participants and stakeholders and residents in the community, which is also attached to the master plan attachment in the agenda report. Embracing the past and emerging into the future was the key vision statement. This is a form that we used to solicit feedback during the public meetings, and also we did we created a Facebook page to get additional feedback from the public, and placed a survey online as well. This is a summary of the feedback that we received. The red line denotes everything that is to the left of the red line, or that touches the red line, are those elements that we received enough volume of feedback and comments on that were incorporated into our planning efforts. Before I do the presentation on the recommended placement and programming in this master plan, it's important to note that the locations and sizes in the graphics that I'm going to show are intended to denote a general vicinity and not an exact location. So in addition to the community feedback, the parks planning efforts address the need to reinforce the east-west public connections to the Riverwalk with garden streets, and to expand access to the Riverwalk, and to make the existing access read as more public. Walkability was an important factor, so we achieved that by drawing a quarter-mile radius around the center of the district and placing parks within that. The streetcar route and likely retail areas were considered. Long-standing vacant parcels and underutilized parcels were considered. Again, the need to protect large parcels to get the dense development needed for streetcar viability was an important factor. We look to reinforce the circulation objectives given the volumes projected on the new C Street Bridge, the layered network standards that we've been drafting, and the streetcar route was considered in terms of the likely retail opportunities. And finally, the historic district was preserved. This is a summary of the overall recommendations in the Parks Master Plan. As you can see, a total of 3.2 acres in 4 locations is being recommended. In addition, a 5-acre off-leash dog park near the boat ramp and a green access corridor to the south of the Ziggurat building with some park amenities. And an additional access corridor should be implemented as an extension of C Street. And then creating a paved lit bike pedestrian path connection between D Street and the boat ramp. In addition, greening and art on C and E streets. This is the location of the recommended off-leash dog park. Off-leash dog parks are something that was expressed in many meetings I've been in, both in the Bridge District and in the Washington area, something the community highly prizes and desires. And it's being recommended because of the use of these areas. They create a lot of activity and use that it be placed near the boat ramp. However, the city's Parks Director is recommending that we not install or implement this improvement until later on phases of development in the district. Just an example. As you can see, dog parks are very inexpensive compared to other parks in terms of implementation. This is the recommended C Street River Access Corridor. The recommendation is to green C Street and add the bike or pedestrian U Street connection to the waterfront along C Street, as significant automobile volumes are expected with the new C Street Bridge and Rail Yards project in Sacramento. The improvements on C Street are intended to serve as city entry features and act as traffic calming to communicate the residential character of the neighborhood to motorists. This is an example of some garden or greened streets that other jurisdictions have done. The park strategy addresses the important role of art in regeneration of this district. Art improvements are incorporated as essential features of wayfinding for walkability and to establish a unique identity and character of the neighborhood and for security. So they're layered into the circulation designs in terms of reinforcing the character of the street and TOD goals. On this graphic, you can see the smaller yellow asterisks denote the art icons. The large red asterisks denote art beacons, which are located along the Riverwalk and are larger features. It is recommended that the water tower be redesigned and serve as a beacon and be relocated to serve as a better entry feature to the city. You can see that's where we have an existing beacon. That's the location of where the existing water tower is, that the recommendation is to redesign. This is an additional beacon would be placed here, and finally one here along this new access corridor. The graphics kind of depict some of the examples of water towers that have been enhanced with public art. Public art is also recommended as a wayfinding. These photos are taken from Johannesburg in South Africa. Johannesburg has seen a significant transformation. It was apparently very bleak, a lot of crime, it was an eroding area, and it has been completely transformed with new public art in the area. And this is a series of Judah trees that they installed around the Nelson Mandela Bridge that reinforce the bridge connection. And then this is an example of what another jurisdiction did with very lit beacons.
Barbara fence behind them.
This is the park at 5th and C. This is currently a city-owned parcel. It's in use for as a garden by the Land Institute. It is along the streetcar route, so the final siting will ultimately have to be responsive to the market, and we may need to move it in terms if retail opportunities or development can be realized at this corner, as it is on the streetcar route, and it would be an ideal location for retail. This is the potential programming of that site. This is the 7th and E Street neighborhood park. That park is intended to serve the residential development on the far western side of the district. This is the programming recommended for that park. This is the Washington Square Park, which is envisioned more as a civic plaza. This is the potential park programming recommended for that space. And finally, this is the Riverfront Park at the connection of E and 2nd Street and E and the Riverwalk. E Street is our primary Riverwalk access corridor. It's also recommended for greening and art. This Riverfront Park is located directly adjacent to the existing Riverwalk at the terminus of E Street. The park is intended to activate the Riverwalk. The Riverwalk currently is underutilized and is seen to lack vitality. So the community is not realizing the return on the millions that have been invested in these improvements. So the recommendation from the team and the consultant is that we create a child-centered park adjacent to our existing investments to reap more return on them. It will be sited adjacent to where we have existing investments in hardscape and in restrooms. And it is being envisioned as a bridge that can connect the Washington District community to the Riverwalk. The design is intended to respond to the existing topography and geography of the site and to establish a series of programmed terraces that move up the levee and have amenities on the top of the levee. It's intended to have amenities which are attractive to families in the hope that eventually this will cause them to inevitably spill out and get greater use of the river park. This is an example of where this concept has been successful in San Diego. This park was an area that was once completely inhabited by transients and public inebriants. It was plagued with many problems. So the city invested in major amenities that were intended to attract children and families, and it's become very successful. The social conditions and the conditions of the park have improved dramatically. It is one of the most heavily used parks. However, I do need to note, as I state in my agenda report, that the property owners adjacent to this site are unanimously opposed to this park. This is the potential park program. Finally, the recommendation is that we create a new southern access corridor. This would be a combined vehicular, pedestrian, bicycle zone. So it would be mixing all of those modes of access, transportation into this area, but the linear features of the park, in addition to trees and greening, would include some exercise stations, which were also a desire of the property owners during the public input process. This is an example of at least what the pedestrian, what some of those concepts would be. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobson. We're returning to council for comments before public comment.
I'll wait until after.
Good stuff. Good. Okay. Great. So we've got 4 speakers. The first is Christine Almy.
Good evening, council members and staff. My name's Christine Amy. I've lived in the Washington District for 10 years now. I'm representing the Historic Broderick District Neighbourhood Watch program. We've had a lot of discussion amongst our neighbours and sending information back and forth that covers approximately 500 people in our area through the website next door, talking about this proposed Parks and Recreation Plan, and we're all so thrilled and excited that the underutilised empty parcels are going to be beautified and made more attractive for people living in the area to want to come and play with their families, and also to attract tourists and people visiting the area. We're just so thrilled, and we're hoping that you recommend that you approve the plan as well. We would only hope that the parks were a little bigger, because we're thinking that West Sac's going to explode once the arena comes upon us. We're just going to have not enough hands on deck to cover the overwhelming demand for residents and commercial real estate, everything. So we're very much in favour of this plan, and we're hoping council approve it. And again, I wanted to reiterate on the empty, underutilised parcels that have been and are still existing in West Sacramento that have attracted blighted areas and a lot of camping and trash, and frankly, we're just tired of looking at it. Anything that would improve this, that would make it a more refreshing place for us to live, work, and play would be wonderful. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. John Freeman.
Good evening, council and staff. My name is John Freeman, and I live in the Washington District. I am a homeowner, and I've been participating in many of the staff meetings that Katie was just referring to. The Washington District residents approve and support the Washington Parks Master Plan. And the Washington District strongly wants the connection of the Riverwalk Park north into the Broadwick boat ramp, which on Katie's map it showed a future lighted bike path. The Washington District residents have worked with the West Sac City staff at multiple public workshops to identify the Washington Parks Master Plan priorities. The Washington District believes that the highest priority should be given to extending the bike path north of the Riverwalk Park, up towards the Broadwick boat ramp. And extending the current bike path will allow a connection to the Washington District along the riverfront and add more pedestrian and bike-friendly usage. And I want to, that was like my little script, but I'm going to go off script now. I just want to say that the Washington neighbors really do talk a lot now. We're all more getting involved. We're enjoying the new amenities in the neighborhood, like the Third Strike Cafe and Broderick's and the Green Thumb. And we really do appreciate the city staff and the police department and the council, all the efforts that they've been making to clean up the neighborhood and bring control where families can come out and enjoy the neighborhood. And we've been trying a lot more to enjoy the neighborhood. So I just want to conclude by saying that we definitely support any positive development in the Washington District. And we especially would like to get the Riverwalk Park, which currently ends at the I Street Bridge with two big rocks. And when you look towards there, it looks like, okay, that's the destination I do not want to go. We would like people that are enjoying the Riverwalk Park to come farther into the Washington neighborhood. So I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Martin Perucci.
Good evening, council members. I am Martin Perucci. My family has been in West Sacramento for close to 100 years. We've been property owners in Broderick and in West Sacramento. And I'm here to urge the council tonight not to approve the current plan the way it's graphically illustrated, because it's taking a large parcel of a plot of land that we property owners have been working on for close to 20 years. I take issue with the comment about underutilized and vacant land. My family, through the Beltrami side, I looked this up. In that little section of 2nd Street, in the last 100 years, we've had a business or a building there for 80 of those years. 80% of the time we've been doing business here in West Sacramento. This park will severely limit our ability to put together a development program that will create what would possibly be a beacon for development in West Sacramento. We've got close to 6 acres there of property owners. The staff's graphic proposal is taking almost close to 2 acres of that. It's just unacceptable to me. And I really urge the council to consider seriously the prospect of seizing land from property owners, which is what this proposal has done. Thank you.
Thank you. Val Toppenberg.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, thank you for having this opportunity to speak with you this evening. I work with the 5 families that own the properties that make up the One Riverfront Plaza area. It's a really terrific piece of property, and one that I think is uniquely situated for an opportunity for development in West Sacramento. We had the opportunity last week to look at a map that showed not only the circulation plan, but also the kind of parks configuration of the area. We're really looking forward to the Washington District Sustainable Community Plan. I think it's a terrific plan. I think it has some great concepts in it. We like the strategies that promote the connectivity of the area and enhancement of the circulation, enhancement of amenities and street lighting, and I think all of those things are going to be terrific for the plan. It's going to make it a more livable community, all of Washington, including the riverfront area. The One Riverfront Plaza property owners have made tremendous progress over the last year in developing a strategy to get their property developed. As you may know, there's been an effort over a lengthy period of time. 20 years ago, the property was fully entitled for a development. Unfortunately, things didn't work out. Now that we're coming out of the recession, there's an opportunity on the horizon to get this property developed. One of the key facilities that they were looking forward to developing was a patio with a restaurant similar to what CalSTRS has done. And with the location of the park on the maps that were shown earlier, it really takes away that opportunity to kind of create that connection for people to dine out on the waterfront, to enjoy that connection with the waterfront. I think a park is needed in the community, is needed in the neighborhood, one that supports the young kids' amenities. But I think there's opportunities to do that in a lot of different areas. And we'd like the opportunity to work with your staff to figure out some alternatives that would serve the public equally as well without limiting the opportunity that we're looking for as far as development on that site. So we'd like to work with the staff on those alternatives and come up. If you're going to adopt the plan with this map, we'd love to see a map that shows a more general location rather than a very hard line for a park location, because as we begin to market the property, it's going to really limit our ability to market for that particular use. So thank you very much for your time, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Toppenberg. All right, back to council for comments. Mr. Christoph?
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. And first of all, thanks for staff for the effort and the presentation on this. And in the efforts to reach out to the community and get their input, and thanks to the residents for participating and being so enthusiastic in doing so. I do have questions about it, but I'll first say that the Washington neighborhood has certainly I've witnessed myself over the last few weeks and months the total new energy in this neighborhood as a result of what some of the speakers talked about, some of the local neighborhood restaurants and delis and cafes that have sprung up. Even the urban farm, which is a transition use, has generated just a whole lot of interest and energy. And it's such a welcome treat to go up there and see neighbors who I've known up there for a bit, and they're enjoying the coffee shop or a cafe, and it's a terrific neighborhood. So glad to have some eyes and a map on it, and get the feedback from the community. It is truly going to be, I think, a really jewel of our city. We can get things moving. I did have some questions, and it relates a little bit to just this question on first of all, on scrolling down, excuse me for a second, down to the map, and it's the access point on below the ziggurat, south of the ziggurat. And conceptually, I get it. I mean, I actually really welcome this. There's an access road there already, correct?
There's only a fire access easement. It's a bit odd, typically.
It is, yeah.
It's specific to fire trucks. That's all that's the access that's allowed. But we have been working, Charlene's been meeting with the developer of the Teal family for that site.
Yeah, because that's...
And she has explained this to them, and so they've been participating. And that would, because that is needed for vehicles as well. It's going to act like a U Street does in the Bridge District. It'll carry vehicles and peds and bikes.
And the vehicles are just emergency access to the riverfront. That's kind of my question.
I actually think it's needed to serve circulation to the site, so not just public safety, but possibly to a parking structure, possibly other, like deliveries, back of house.
Right. And I want to make sure we're talking about the same southern access at the ziggurat. So that's, I mean, the only access up to it is you're going from 3rd Street up to the riverfront. Are we talking about the same thing?
Is it this? Oh, you've turned. Right, it's the access corridor.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, the access corridor. So when you're saying it's going to the back of, because the parcel I'm concerned about is the one south of this, which is the Teal property, right?
Right, so this access corridor is actually on the Teal property.
Okay.
But I know that my director, Charlene Hamilton, has been working with the developer that the Teals have retained, and I don't believe there's opposition because it's understood that that was a vehicular as well. It's a mixed modal.
Okay. And I guess it's kind of the core of the question around the concept of the map we're looking at, and it is conceptual. So we're not in any way mapping an easement or doing anything that would prohibit the Teal family from, because in my years on the Planning Commission, this property has been talked about before, and as a hotel site, as a commercial, it's the gateway to our city right there.
Right.
And what I don't want to do is if there's an opportunity, and I'm just going to make something up of a commercial, restaurant and even a hotel at that site, that this wouldn't interfere with that, but they would have to work with it.
Exactly. I mean, it would be, when they have concrete development plans, the city sits down side by side and works through the circulation requirements.
Right.
There is a need for another access corridor. The access corridor to the Riverwalk that is on the other side of the ziggurat does not look public.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say there is a need defined for another access corridor. I think that the property owner and developer will want it to be vehicular to serve their development, but certainly it can be looked at in terms of relocated or realigned, or in terms of the sizing. That this is very conceptual, so that is not done until development is happening.
That's, okay, and I just wanted to get that point clear. And it has to do with the last comment we heard from the other property owners as well, because, you know, personally, that property south is the one I just want to make sure that we have full opportunity to I know we're going to have access, but I want to make sure that we preserve the ability to kind of be flexible. In general, a couple, you know, I love the feedback the neighbors gave, and trying, and specifically, bless you, specifically the emphasis on artwork and the pedestrian nature of the Washington district. To me, that's the opportunity that is the Washington district is. And when I think of it, and people are going to think I'm crazy, but I think of walking around in maybe a Georgetown in Washington, where it's neighborhoods and people can get anywhere by foot, and it has that feel to it along the riverfront and everything that, you know, the way we have you articulate or promote beacons kind of leading to the riverfront. I think that's important because people need to, that will be the orientation. While we have the radius going from the Washington Square, which to me, to be frank, is a little arbitrary. I mean, I know that that's there, but the beacon of this is the waterfront and everybody's ability to kind of walk through the neighborhoods, get to the waterfront, and being able to, you know, have places and landmarks along the way to kind of get you back and forth. That's sort of what I envision, and even walking from, you know, walking around the Third Strike and up through around the urban farm on 5th and C, you know, you're still always gravitating back towards how do you get back. But I do like the general concept of it. The question, which may not be heard the right way, but I have to ask. Every park here has pretty much children's play structures as a programming idea or concept. And I worry about that only in the sense that you can overbuild, you know, again, I overbuild have too much emphasis on children's parks when maybe it doesn't fit the future neighbors that are going to inhabit that area. I mean, this is, we had this discussion years ago at the Planning Commission around urban park sensibilities and trying to differentiate that between the suburban park experience, which is play structures and you know, water parks which is odd to bring up right now, but we'll forget about that. But the water parks down in Bridgeway Lakes, which are terrific amenities for the folks in that area. But I think we need to think about the urban landscape a little differently, and that's the one piece of this that kind of caught my attention, especially even on the park, the 2nd Street park up north, where you have the proposed dog area, dog park.
Oh, that.
Yeah, it's even, it is, again, we're obviously people in the areas up there have dogs and they're going to need places to go. But I just worry about trying to apply kind of suburban park sensibilities to an urban experience. So it's nothing more than to warn against over programming that. Our parks directors are here listening, but they have more knowledge about what's needed, and obviously an inventory survey, what residents really want and need. But I think that's the part we have to guard against, that every park has to have this huge play structure and has to have X, and you need some of that. But I saw in one of the illustrations you have some parks and have chessboards and things where folks can go and adults can go and hang out as well. So it's just sort of a thought that I had. And I had one more, I think. The connection to the boat ramp that was brought up. Will a lot of that be alleviated once the I Street Bridge viaduct is removed? And is that the biggest inhibitor we have to?
I think because the rail tracks will remain, the connection underneath those rail tracks is going to be an interesting challenge, but I've been out to the site many times to sort that out because this is something that the neighborhood feels strongly about in terms of security and perception of security, and getting a lit paved path is through that area from D Street on up into the boat ramp is very important. As you know, it takes more regulatory permitting because it will be on the levee, but the actual improvements will not be that expensive. So we will do a phasing program. So we will do cost estimating, financing, and a phasing probably next year when we're updating the specific plan. So this is, but we are hearing the residents indicate that's very important to them.
And I would agree, and I think some of that, though, would be alleviated by the fact that those viaducts in 5-6 years will be coming away. The
viaducts coming down opens tremendous opportunity. It also opens a beautiful new vista on the property that the owners are speaking to tonight. So that will be exciting development.
Well, those are my comments for now, and I appreciate the work again on everybody's behalf.
Councilmember Sandine?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Jansen. I too appreciate the work of staff and also the community members for their engagement and the landowners for their comments as well. For me, I think you just spoke to the phasing, and I think that, and because this is coming forward to us in its conceptual form, obviously I think along the way there will be, as acquisitions happen, and we're not going forward, this is exactly where these placements are, because it's conceptual, and there's opportunities for more funding to move pieces forward. I think in general, given the input, given the need for parks, and the work, I'm supportive. I know that there will be, this isn't, again, we're not mapping this, so I know that there'll be some discussions with landowners, and the continued discussions with the neighborhood. We heard tonight maybe perhaps even some enlargement if that's possible, or modifications in location. So in general, I'm supportive of the concept.
Great, thank you. Mr. Kristoff?
Yeah, where's the Indian Museum in all this? Is it a viable project? Has the state forgotten about it, or what?
I believe it's moving forward. I can't speak to the exact status, but I do know the state is still engaged in advancing it forward and working with the city on it. Ideally, this bike path would connect to it when it is constructed.
Okay, because for me, that'll be very helpful. I just want to make sure that, I think it is important that the Riverwalk be extended to the boat ramp, but I think that the Indian Museum is going to really help that acreage and help not only theirs, but the properties that are under the bridge, around the boat ramp. There's some pretty, there's some characters around there. And I just want to make sure that one of the big elements that we at least address, and that's the public safety part of it. So that will be pretty important to me, and I think the Indian Museum is a very, very important component of that. Now, I realize that this is conceptual, and I think that if there can be some flexibility as far as various parklands. I think that everybody's made some decent points as far as, how much parkland is really necessary. But at the same time, I think the community has had so much input in this that they're really looking for something. And I think that we're going to need to have that delicate balance that allows that to go forward. There are a number of property owners that, for me, it has been fairly frustrating. We've worked with some of these property owners for 25, 26 years, as far as to get something, anything, in the ground and get moving. And for whatever reason, I mean, I realize the economy fell in the tank, I realize, but, you know, there's excuse after excuse after excuse, and I'd like to try to push them. And I think that this is an opportunity to do that. They've got some great ideas. I mean, the apartment complexes and the different things along the river with the restaurants that are attached that look out to the river. I think that they're really it's something that would really be unique and it'd be very, very beneficial for the city of West Sacramento and for those property owners. But getting them to move is, I don't know if it's in the cards. I really don't. But it's something that I'd like to see happen. But I mean, I keep hearing that they're exploring those opportunities and this and that. Well, they've been exploring for 25 years. So anyway, it's just something I'd like to see happen. And we do have some property owners that have had property in that area for a number of years, and they just can't be forgotten. They were the pioneers. And they really, you just can't throw it out. I mean, we've got to work with them. I see where this is conceptual, so I mean, I think if we can work with them, we would be much better off. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Ms. Jacobson and Ms. Hamilton and Bob Johnson for putting this together. I think it's really good work. And as my brethren have said, this is really a conceptualization. And I agree with the concerns that have been expressed here. Mr. Ledesma is concerned about urbanization of parks and suburban parks. And as we look to develop it, what are we trying to do and who are we trying to serve in these? I'm a big believer in dog parks. You know, we've had a couple put in town since I've been here, and it really is a place for people to organize and, you know, meet your neighbors. Placement of that, I know it's conceptual. It's probably a discussion about where that's happening. I think I agree with Mr. Ledesma in terms of when we're looking at particularly these riverfront properties, what are we trying to do in the future? And over the course of time, when we've looked at the riverfront, we've always talked about activation. So activation is not having where you're bicycling and all of a sudden there's this big expanse of nothing and you come into something. So, I mean, to me, a break for a park in that particular location seems like it's not really activated. So I would encourage two concepts. One would be the location of parks within the district, but other than that, what is an urban park? You know, and in terms of having play structures or things of that nature, you know, most urban areas, parks tend to be areas of reflection, and you basically bring your entertainment with you and not have fixed structures there. It creates more flexibility, and it's more inviting to, I think, different people. But I'm excited about the prospect of this plan moving forward. I like the idea of the bicycle path, also extending to the boat ramp. You know, one of the main issues in that area is I'm glad to see people are getting out and walking in neighborhoods, because that's what it really takes to take over neighborhoods. And I think the combination with neighbors out there doing their job, or PD doing their job, staff doing their job, I think it looks like we're making progress in that area. We just need to keep it up, and to the extent we can, you know, create more commuter routes, bike path commuter routes, as we're seeing more people doing, I think it's great. Now, in terms of the historic boundaries here, I don't know if it's ever been brought to council on a specific boundary for the historic district. I know that's always an issue when you look at some type of preservation ordinance or some type of district designation. Is this, again, a conceptualization of what that might be?
That's the existing district that's designated in the specific plan.
Okay.
But the district itself is encouraging preservation. it isn't as far as some historic preservation ordinances might go in other jurisdictions. What we did as part of this grant effort is to, we had the Historical Society and BBCAN were subcontractors under the grant, and they've completely walked the district, photoed it, taken a new survey. That survey will be placed online. It's really an inventory of all the properties and their condition. And so one of the areas that came forward during the public meetings was the desire for a branding and a distinct identity for the district, and also that was sort of blended with this historic discussion. But what we're recommending is that we move forward the historic identity in terms of our street lighting and our street features and the way that we do frontage, and we carry that historic theme through the neighborhood, even outside of that preservation district. But that the character and identity are really formed with this art as placemaking and wayfinding, and redesigning of our water tower and creating very exciting entry features and things like that. And I did forget in my presentation to add that staff has been working with arts groups, because we've been told by our federal government partners that will be highly competitive and receive preference points for a National Endowment of the Arts grant. So I'm really excited about the potential of the partnerships and the matching funds that are coming from different locations. So I hope to be bringing a really great grant proposal forward late in the year.
Very nice, thank you. Any further comments? Do we have a motion on this item?
Let's see here. All we're supposed to do is take public comment and provide direction.
Do you need
Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
conceptual, okay. Well, Mr. Mayor, I'd move approval of the recommended Washington Parks Master Plan for distributed parks and public open space within the Washington specific plan area, and to direct staff to incorporate it in the final HUD complete community strategy for future council approval. With the comments, I think, that we've made, that this is conceptual in nature, and we are going to work with property owners and work with the community to make sure that we put these things in the right spot, so that we're really not affecting businesses or other kinds of things that may locate in the area.
All right, there is a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Thank you. Okay, item number 10, presentation and discussion of a draft ordinance 14-9 regarding zoning for retail sales of firearms and ammunition. Mr. Tilley.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Johannesson, members of the council. I'm here tonight to present this draft ordinance 14-9 to you this evening. This ordinance would seek to adjust our land use and zoning matrix to adjust those zones where retail sales of firearms and ammunition would be accommodated. Under our present ordinance, on a conditional basis, retail sales of firearms are considered under our community commercial, central business district, waterfront, and mixed use and general commercial zones, all on a conditional basis. This particular ordinance would seek to adjust those zones so that they would become conditionally permitted in our business park, limited industrial, light industrial, and heavy industrial zones, as well as remain within our general commercial zone. This matter we brought forward to us earlier this year from an existing business owner in town who was seeking a new location and trying to move out of the wholesale arena and into the retail side with this particular industry. And so we agreed that we would consider some changes to help clarify our zoning ordinance and to assist that business. And then later on, another business became in town, ammunition came to our attention as well, that may also benefit from some of these changes if they are ultimately enacted from the council. So tonight we are seeking any input and direction on this particular ordinance before we proceed to a public hearing at at a subsequent city council meeting. And so at this time, I will close my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Tilley. All right, I do not see any requests to speak on this issue, so it's back to council for comments or questions of Mr. Tilley.
Yeah, David, the Planning Commission, when they heard this, what was their response?
Well, the Planning Commission was supportive of the changes that we're making. They realized that, this is an industry that we would like to be able to accommodate in our community but under these parameters. They did favor retaining these on a conditional basis as they are in our zoning matrix presently, but we're supportive of adjusting those zones to where this use would be accommodated on a conditional basis. So they passed a resolution, which was attached to your staff report this evening, in favor of these changes.
Because it's not like we haven't had firearms in the central business district before. I mean, we had Big R and different things like that. And it was conditional then. And so, I mean, we've received a letter, and I'm a little perplexed because over 75% or 50% of the city is okay. I mean, planning staff, and they don't have any problems. So as long as it is a conditional use permit, everyone will still have their say as far as where something goes. Is that correct?
Yeah, just certainly the use permit provides the city some additional discretion on any given project at a given, location. In the real world, when a project would come forward, our goal tonight is to adjust those zoning districts where we would entertain one of these businesses, albeit still on a conditional basis.
Well, it seems like the person that brought this to our attention, if I remember correctly, they seemed to be pretty happy when they left the Planning Commission.
Yeah, that gentleman, Mr. Dawson, I recall, he's definitely seeking clarity here and to where he can proceed, with his business. He was located in an light industrial area then, but albeit on the wholesale, side of things.
Right, and that's wholesale, right?
Yeah, and so I believe it was his desire to, remain here in town and seek clarity as to where he could go, and that these changes here would likely assist him in his efforts in securing a location, and may also potentially assist our other existing business, Ammunition, which is currently in a heavy industrial zone in Southport Business Park.
Thank you.
Sure it doesn't?
Yeah, it's just, I'm supportive of this. It's not by any means unreasonable or out of scope for our city to have certain businesses zoned for certain areas. We do it all, that's the purpose of, it's one of the authorities, the biggest authorities we have as a city is our ability to zone land use for certain uses and condition them. So we do it for a lot of different purposes. And we have, in some areas, in industrial areas, for instance, we have taken daycare centers or other entertainment facilities where folks have wanted to go and limited what they can do in industrial areas because we wanted to protect the integrity of the business owners and trucking station, whatever is out there. So this is just another way of kind of managing towards that, I think. And is that consistent, Mr. Taylor?
Yes, we would agree with that completely.
Yeah. So like I said, this is not unreasonable. There's I don't think or out of what we would normally want to do, and I think it's in the benefit of folks everywhere. It's pretty clear where they can locate. There's plenty of space available, and so it's for all the right reasons with the community's best interest in mind. So I'm supportive of this.
Thank you. Councilmember Sandee.
And I don't think I have anything new to add. I'm supportive of this too. I always like to test our zoning kind of thinking with some hypotheticals too. So if there were a large sporting goods store that sold multiple things, including firearms, would that also pertain, the zoning pertain to them?
Well, we have been looking at this, you know, as a partial, as a primary and accessory use. So if
Right.
if we were to entertain a large, you know, sporting goods store, that may very well go in one of these larger zones where they can have a large property. Yeah, anyway, it's, you know, it's unlikely something like that could be accommodated in a, you know, community commercial area. They, you know, need several acres, and so, you know, perhaps the general commercial zone would be more like one of those, would most likely land, and then they would fit under this as well for the firearm sale portion.
It does seem from the attachment to the staff report that, I mean, to me, it appears that about a third of the city square mileage or whatever is covered potentially by the zones. Is that a quarter to a third?
That's approximately correct,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, I'm supportive of staff recommendations as well, and as Councilmember Sandine points out, that there's a huge amount of land within West Sacramento that's still available for this, so we're in no way shutting out this firearm sale. It's just within our power of reasonable regulation and zoning as Councilmember Ledesma mentioned, we do this all the time where a gas station goes and all the other uses that we deal with, whether it's schools or churches or all kinds of things. So I'm comfortable with the direction of staff in this report. Mr. Ledesma?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I would go ahead and make a motion to take the recommended action.
Great, okay. Second?
Looks like it's coming back to us in public
Oh, is this
hearing.
public comments?
That's
Or
right. Yeah.
okay.
We would propose first to do first reading in the public hearing at your next council meeting.
All right, so the audience is informed that a public hearing and first reading of ordinance 14-9 is scheduled for September 3rd, 2014. Thank you, Mr. Tilley.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item 11, I have a request by staff to pull the item, take it off. Unless there's any objection, we will pull that and move on to item 12, which is consideration of initiating the street renaming process for South River Road in the Pioneer Bluff and Stone Lock districts. Ms. Hamilton this time.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Johannesson and members of the council. So we are returning to you tonight at the request from your August 6th council meeting, where the Public Works Department presented in a workshop format several items related to the opening of Mike McGowan Bridge and the future extension of Village Parkway to connect to that bridge. One of the items was the issue that will arise upon opening day of Mike McGowan Bridge, whether all three segments of South River Road are either open to vehicle traffic or not. We still have a street naming issue that will arise. And so our first PowerPoint. So this first slide is attachment 1 to orient you and the viewers at home as to what area we're talking about and the situation that will arise on opening day. So currently, you have this segment of the road, South River Road, named South River Road. This has been closed for a while in Southport, along where the arrow's going now, in the Stone Lock area, due to the levee improvement project that's going on. But when that opens up, and also when it opens up over to the west, in between Jefferson Boulevard and the new Mike McGowan Bridge, we will now have 3 street segments, all with the same name. And that could create confusion for drivers and cyclists, as well as our mutual aid responders. So we're here tonight to seek your initiation of the street renaming process so we can avoid this issue. We do have a policy on how we rename streets, and that's contained in attachment 2 of the agenda report. There's really only 2 ways to initiate the renaming. It either has to be done by the majority of the property owners along that street or by the city council. So that's why we're here. If you choose to initiate the renaming process tonight, it is not a final decision on street names. We have to go through an outreach process to not only the property owners that front that street, but also with several agencies. Examples are 911, Office of Emergency Services, the Post Office, several entities. And we need to get their input, whether they object or approve or have other comments. And then once that is done, we return to you in a notice public hearing to formally adopt renaming of a street or two. So that's the process. You asked us to come back with a couple of options. So since there are 3 street legs that we're talking about, we put together 3 options, and they vary in impact. So the first renaming option is the least impactful, and that would be renaming only the portion of South River Road that occurs between Jefferson Boulevard and what will be the new connection to the Mike McGowan Bridge. There are no properties that are addressed off of this, and so it won't have any impacts for residents or business owners. And what that will ultimately do is leave then the segment that runs through the industrial area currently in Pioneer Bluff, named South River Road, and then it will come across the bridge, and then South River Road continues and goes along the river. And so it is a continuous road. That's the least impactful. The second option is renaming of the entire portion that runs from the new bridge all the way along the river, all the way down to Southport. We're not recommending this one because of impacts to residents. And ultimately, when the new Village Parkway is extended, and when it's even extended further south by the flood protection program to connect to Jefferson Boulevard through the eastern area of Southport, the road on the levee actually will go away to vehicle traffic, with the exception of some connection to the 2 marinas. And so that renaming, we know that the levee improvement project is moving forward, so that renaming really, if anything, would be short-lived. And the third option is probably the most impactful to properties that are addressed off of that, and that's the area between the US 50 on-ramp at the Pioneer Bridge and then down to where South River Road is in Southport. There are many businesses along here who are addressed off of that road. They have that address on their trucks, payroll checks, letterhead, and business signage, so that could be pretty expensive for them. And we think this is something, though, that will need to occur, and we talk about that in the staff report, because when the southern area of South River Road in Southport moves off the levee, if we don't rename this at some point in the future, we then have 2 segments of a South River Road that are disconnected, and that could be confusing. So this one, we are recommending that this section of, where's my arrow? This section of South River Road be pushed off into the future, and the timing be discussed through the Pioneer Bluff Transition Plan, which is under development, and also have a trigger of when the South River Road in Southport moves off the levee, because that's when Village Parkway becomes the primary route, and we want to avoid the 2 disconnects of South River Road. So that concludes my presentation. And again, we're just asking if you want to initiate the process and if you concur with staff's recommendation to only initiate it at this time for option number 1.
Thank you. Questions from council?
Darlene, have we had an opportunity to speak to the businesses along the South River Road option 3?
No, we have not.
Because one of the policies that we have is we talk to existing businesses or property owners or whatever it is to see if they can come up with a name.
Correct. We haven't talked to them yet because we're not recommending initiating renaming of that segment of the road.
Oh, no, I understand that. Yeah, no, I understand that. Okay.
Mr. Ledesma.
I'm in agreement with the recommendation with the caveat that I'm not interested in initiating the South River Road rename into Fifth Street, and but that will have to happen at some point. And I think you've articulated that, but just I'm willing to put it up. We haven't even talked to the business owners. They know I think they're pretty aware we're doing the transition plan now, and we need to start letting them know that that's going to change to Fifth Street. I think that was some of the comment we had when we heard this last meeting was the extension of Fifth Street all the way down will be important to the success, I think, of the Pioneer Bluff area. And certainly when it hits the McGowan Bridge, then things will change. The part that I didn't realize till this very moment was that South River Road will no longer be at some point. That will disappear from our vernacular with the Village Parkway. Is that correct?
Yes, except for at the very end of the city. There might still be a small remnant of South River Road that then ties to the South River Road that's in the county, just south of our city limits.
Nostalgia moment, but that's kind of what I suddenly realized when what we're doing, and it is it's just I never realized it. But anyway, I'm fine with your recommendation and getting to the renaming later of Fifth Street, initiating that when all the business owners are ready and the transition plan is in implementation mode. We're going to have to do that.
Thank you. Councilmember Sandin.
I want to thank staff for the creativity coming up with these options for us, and also the recommendation. I think also even the thoughtfulness about the suggestion of Locks Drive, and also looking at the least impact. Thanks for coming forward with that to us. And I'm supportive of us initiating the process for this first little piece. Just I think for clarity and wayfinding sake, we do need to come up with this alternative. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I'm supportive of staff's proposal to initiate the process on the short segment of South River Road. And this issue with South River Road, I remember back in the day when Google Maps was first starting to come out, I don't know how many people were coming to visit, and they ended up at the old decommissioned sewer plant because of this. And but I understand the nostalgia that Mr. Ledesma brought up. Now on this, the old South River Road, I mean, that there'll still be a path on that. It just won't be for vehicle traffic. So we'll still maybe have like the remnants along that levee, or is that?
That's true. The Parks Master Plan has that returning to a trail and possibly bike path. So, we could retain the nostalgia of South River Road and maybe call it South River Trail or something.
Nice save, Mayor Pro Tem.
Great. Well, thank you. Any other comments? All right. Then we're looking for a motion.
I'll move the recommended action to initiate the street renaming process.
All right. And is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. All right. Moving on to council calendar.
Yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, this is our last meeting for the month of August, and I wanted to remind the council that next week on the 28th is the final dig-in dinner for the month of August. And on the 29th of September, a time has been set for that U.S. Conference of Mayors presentation of the City Livability Awards. That's going to be at 11 o'clock here in the Galleria.
Thank you. City manager report?
No report.
Thank you. City attorney report? No report. Any staff direction from council members? Any agenda item requests from council members? Seeing none. All right. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, meeting adjourned.